So hello guys, welcome to another lesson of HTML and CSS, and this is lesson number 25 of learning HTML and CSS. And in this lesson we are going to talk about two topics that one is very important and second one is very important for the responsibility, actually it's for responsive websites. So those are CSS display and max width. So first talk about the display. So display property is the most important CSS property for controlling layouts in our pages. So by default there are not by default, actually the most elements in CSS have block or inline type of display. So for example, we talked about them in our previous videos as well. So let's first talk about the block level elements. These elements contain or get the full width of the screen, or occupy as much width as they can, whereas they don't take the width respective to their content. They just every time start from a new line and take the complete width as they can occupy. So the example of block level elements could be h1 to h6 tags, which means h1 h2 all the way to h6, p tags, font tags, header tags, footer tags, and section tags. These are all block level elements. So if we talk about inline elements, so these elements just don't start in the new line, they just start in the same line where the previous content ended, and it just spans a width of amount as needed for its content. So it just wraps around its content and don't take any unnecessary width around it. So the example could be span tag, link tag, and an image tag. These are all inline elements. So actually if we set their display to none, this is a property in CSS, which if display property is set to none, so it would just hide that element and it would just show the layout in front of the user just as that element didn't even exist there. So let us go to our IDE and see some examples of these things. So these are our files from previous lessons. So for this lesson number 25, I'm going to create a new file and CSS display and max width .html. So the boilerplate, for title I'm going to give it a simple title, CSS display. And right here if I create a block level element, the div, this is tag, and for span tag, for example, for you can say a tag, which is inline tag, you can say which is inline display of tag. So this is our tag. Both of these are having the same text, whereas if we go to our browser and see how does it look there and what is the difference between both of them, so they actually look similar for now. If I may come here and create an in-page style and give the div a style of a background color of orange so that we may see it completely, and for a tag we may give it background color of green, actually blue, so we can go with blue. Right here as you can see, this div tag is containing whole of the width of the screen, whereas this span tag is just containing the width as much necessary for its content. So after seeing this we didn't do the practical for this display. So right here if I may go to our div and give it the display property to none, it means it would just vanish it from there. Right here you can see it is just behaving as there wasn't any such sort of div tag right there. So actually by overriding, we mean that we can override the default display of any tag as well. So by using this property we can actually get our standards, the way we want to display our page, and we would not actually ruin the specific or specified web standard that we will follow that display style actually that standard style that we should follow for web as well, by using those tags and implementing or personalizing it according to our needs. So right here if I may remove this display none and comment it so that you may get it. So all of these files that we use in our lessons are available in each of lessons description. You can get there, the link would be there. So for this div, if this is by default the block of display of this element is block, so if I give it the display of inline, which means just make it inline. So let's see it on our browser. So as you can see, it has become inline. the same way, if I come here and give it this, give it the display of block by default, which is inline, so you can see it has become block now. So this is the way of using these overriding the displays. So there is also a property which is visibility hidden. So what is the difference between both of them? Both of them hide the element, but for display none, it doesn't allow that element to influence the display of the page as well. But whereas in visibility, it allows the same it to get the or use the same space inside our markup. So let us see it practically. You would get it better by a practical example. Right inside our IDE, if I may give it inline by default, which is inline, so and let us keep it commented for you. So if for div and a, if I give it the display of none, which means if I may uncomment it, as you can see, it didn't go disappear because inside our style we have given the display an inline display after this display. So in order, actually, if a value is given, the same attribute is given a value later, it would be following that style, whereas it would be overriding the above one. So if we may comment this one, then our tag would be disappeared right here, as you can see. But it is not affecting any of our style or any of the layout of our page. But if we want our tag in some cases just to be hidden right there and still influence the layout of our page, so we can set its visibility to hidden. Right here you can see that tag is influencing the layout. If we make it inline again, you can see it is still influencing because it is getting that space, but it is not visible here. So after this visibility stuff, we come to the max width. So actually this max width property is usually used by developers when they want their layouts to be more responsive for smaller screens as well. So this is an example showing you the usage of max width. So these are two divs. In one we have given it the width property, whereas in the second one we have given it the max width property. So just get its demonstration in our IDE and see it practically, that how does it influences it and make it responsive for smaller devices. So right here, if I may create a div, for example, div dot let us give it as class as well, class of test, and style this one for our previous div, which is this one, so that these styles may not appear in this example. So example 1, and in this example 1 I am going to give it, this is the actually we want to write a bigger text, so let us write lorem 50 and copy this one, this display or this tag again, and paste it right here and give it the ex2 class. So for styling that, for the sake of styling, so in div.ex1 I am going to give it the width of 100% and margin of auto, which means the browser will calculate the margin automatically by itself, and we don't need to calculate it manually to bring it to the center. So whereas for this second div I am going to give it max width rather than width. So max width. So in our example he is doing the same thing, but for visualization we can give it some border as well. Right in our IDE I would give both of them the border 2 pixels solid #6 54336C. I use this color a lot because I like this. So right here, as you can see, it is getting that way. But if we just make it smaller, if I click Ctrl+Shift+C, and it would shift to that smaller screens. So if I may bring it to the smaller screen. So sorry, it isn't working here because we haven't give it correct values. So for this width, let me give it 500 pixels of width, and for it let me give it the max width of 500 pixels. So in previous example we didn't give it the correct values, so sorry for right here. As you can see, this is by default coming inside the mid of the page. So if I may shrink it and make it smaller, so the difference you can see that are above the fixed one, the above one is just not getting smaller. and if I may make it too small, then it would just make our page look really ugly, and it isn't adapting according to the view of the page, and it is making the view of our second div bad as well. So if, for example, I may remove the above one, it would completely, so for it, if I may give it the display none, which means we don't want it for now, for example, you can just remove it as well. So for an example, you can see if I may now shrink it, it would just adapt according to the display of the page and not make our layout that ugly, and it is responsive right now. So this is the difference between max width and using the width property. So that's it for this video. I hope you liked the video. Thank you for watching the video. Goodbye.